Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you from Image Comics with Skybound Entertainment. This is Dark Ride, issue number 1. It's written by Joshua Williamson, art by Andrei Bressan, colors by Adriano Lucas, and then colors by Pat Brosseau. I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. It's no disrespect. It's just how I'm reading them. Can we talk about this book? This book was phenomenal. It is a big boy book. It's got a nice, back cover. The premise of the story was pretty simple. It is. I will call it horror. It's not really scary, but it does have horror tropes. It's got some blood and stuff like that. So, but let's get into it. This is the preview that I read, and I love how they did this. It is a backstory that's all done in black and white until you get to like the end of the backstory. But basically, we're following Arthur, and he is basically trying to create a ride for a theme park. They fired him because his design is too scary, and at home you can see the dude is super into horror. His wife, kind of getting pissed off and claiming it to be childish that he's so into horror, and that's why he got fired from the theme park or something like that. Arthur stating like, I'll just go find another job. He's trying to look past the situation. But one thing leads to another, and she says some crazy stuff. He says some crazy stuff, and it doesn't really show who hits who first, but they end up fist fighting and then throwing stuff, and one thing leads to another, and Arthur eventually kills his wife, puts her in the back of the trunk, and then drives out into the middle of a desert. It does say Las Vegas Strip, so it's somewhere out in Las Vegas in Nevada, but he does bury his wife, and this is finally where we get the first color. Somebody starts, and it's right here, the little red, but somebody's calling his name. And he's like, hey, let's talk. Arthur thinks it's his dead wife. He goes up there and he's like, honey. And basically the voice is like, nah, your wife's dead. She was always a little dead. He was like, hey, he was like, I like you, Arthur. You're very creative. He was like, I feel like we can do something together. Let's make a deal. And basically the deal was that it'll be the greatest ride of his life, but we don't get to hear what he gave into the deal. But basically on the next page we get this badass spread of this horror theme park that was created, based on the deal that this guy made with a demon or devil, or we don't know. But they kind of show us some of the rides at this, and I don't know if we get a name. I'll try and scan as we go through, and I can't remember if it might just be called Horrorland or something like that, something generic. But they do show off some of the rides, and I will just say some of the concept, like this one right here, I think would be dope as hell. It's a zombie ride where you actually get to shoot the zombies that are oncoming. There's like a werewolf theme, where werewolves are trying to get you. A murder mountain. But basically at this point we are following Owen. He is shown over here. But it is his first day on the job at it's Devilland. I'm sorry, Devilland, not Horrorland. Devilland, of course, making the deal with the devil. But it is his first day on the job with Devilland. We meet another one of our, I don't know if it's main character, but it's a character at this point. But her name is Katie Kingston, and she's basically going to train Owen and kind of show him around the park. They basically go through this like employee secret back door through a ride. I think it was through some kind of vampire themed ride or whatever. We find out that Owen is extensively like in love with this park. He is a horror fan. He kind of states that he has always been a horror fan, that his family has been coming to this park. They had season passes. But we do find out that this guy is into this park. But going backstage, we do meet what these people are called, the people watchers, and they're watching the security cameras and stuff like that. We find a lot of the weird stuff that kind of goes on at the park. There's a lot of sex stuff that goes on in the park. People that try and come back and commit suicide so they can haunt the park. There's also people that bring their their dead loved ones so they can spread ashes in the park and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on at this park. We do meet our head of security over here, and basically he kind of mentions one of the stories I just said, and he mentions that this guy needs to keep his badge on at all times. They move on to go to his daily task, which is basically trash cleanup. And as they're going through, we meet the mascots of the park. I'm going to have to read their name real quick because the only one I can remember is the easy one. But it is Danny D. Evil and Old Nick and the Fun. And it's pretty much like that. It's Danny D. Evil, Old Nick, and the Fun, and I actually think they look dope as hell, especially the Fun. And of course, we got Danny D. Evil on the back. But Owen at this time is such a fan. He's like, he's asking all these questions. Hey, have you ever been in the suit? And she's like, nah, you don't want to be a part of the suit. That they smell, and plus that the people wearing the suits, they're kind of like their own little friend group, and they stay close knit. And they basically go on with the rest of their day cleaning up the park and stuff like that, moving from one location to the next. And we get a little more like more of it, Owen's obsession as far as the park and how he loves it and stuff like that, and how he knows so much about it. But then we get like bits and pieces of his backstory, because he does mention his parents are dead. And this is kind of it. We see a raft out in the middle of the ocean, and there is 4 people, like 4 shadows that are on the raft. And then the next scene they show is just him and his sister. He does state at this time that he is the horror fan, that his sister is not the horror fan, that she hated coming to Devilland when they were growing up. But that's all we really get on the backstory from Owen about that. At this point, we get another one of our main characters, and this is Arthur's son, Sam Hain. He kind of walks by, and Owen kind of recognizes him being the son of the person who owns the park and stuff, and he kind of like fanboy freaks out, runs over to him, and it turns out to be at the right moment, because they are discussing like how to bring more people and more money and more revenue into the park, looking for fresh and new ideas. He also is accompanied by the I think park revenue manager, and then I forget what the other guy's position is, HR rep or something like that. But basically they're in like a business meeting walking in the park, and they're trying to come up with a new ride. And basically one of the, I think it's the person that's in charge of the money or something like that, comes up with an idea where he wants to do like a family friendly version, like get away from the horror type thing. And at that point Sam Hain ask Owen, oh, is that a good idea? Should we get away from the horror? And Owen is like, no, I mean, the whole point of the park is a horror themed park. That's, what your dad, I mean, look, they even got a, statue of his dad right here, He's basically saying it would be like a spit in his dad's eye if he did that. And Sam Hain agrees, and eventually fires the guy right on the spot for coming up with that idea. We do find out that the guy that he fired, that came up with the idea, was one of his childhood best friends. And the childhood best friend even thinks it's like a joke at first, and Sam Hain is really like serious about it and does fire him. At this point, as this is going on, all of a sudden they start hearing screams. Sam Hain is like, yeah, that's what we need to hear, screams in the park. And we find out they're not screams of like horror, but they're screams of like fans of joy. And it's because Sam Hain's sister, Halloween Dante, has arrived, and she is some kind of like Hollywood like celebrity or something like that. We do see instantly that the brother and sister don't get along, that they play nice for the cameras and stuff like that, and that's about it. There is a kind of a couple side characters that pop up. One I feel like is going to be a main character, but it's just kind of briefly touched on. This would be one of the side characters that we meet, but this is Alistair, and he is one of the park custodians, and he comes up and he just states that the park always needs to be clean. The other character we get is, I don't even know if we get a name on the guy. I forget, but he is a YouTuber, haha, and he is like investigating the park. He is looking for the owner of the park, which there's some kind of myth going around that the owner of the park is dead and deceased, and he died up in you know, in this dark tower that's a ride at the park or something like that, and he's there to, like, you know, find out what's going on, all the bad stuff, and basically, and so I kind of feel like he's gonna pop up late, you know, later on in issues. We do get to see the end of the park that is done in such like a really dope fashion. A lot of people, less people, no people, you know, lights on, but basically is the end of Owen's day. You know, he completed that day. They cleaned the whole park. He's kind of burned out a little bit, and she makes a joke like, hey, this is going to happen every day, you know. But otherwise, he is pretty much pleased, and, you know, that he is invited from her to go to this restaurant that's in the park that they keep open after hours for employees, and supposedly that's where they talk about all the crazy stuff that went on during the day. Instantly he's about to, you know, say yes, and then all of a sudden he realizes that he lost his ID card, that the security guard was so evident that he keep on him at all times, doesn't want to get, you know, in trouble, and ends up running back for his ID card, and he ends up finding it in some trash. On the way back, he actually gets a message from a friend asking how his day was, and before he can even like type back during the message, all of a sudden he gets somebody starts calling his name, and it's coming from this right over here, the and I think it's called the Devil's Dune, but it's basically just calling his name, Owen, you know, and he's coming, and he goes and he's like, you know, I've ridden this ride, and he's like, I don't scare easily, I'm a horror fan. And he goes in there, and we get to this picture right here, and he realizes this is something brand new that he's never seen before, and this over here, that this is something brand new and he's never seen before. He even states that he's ridden the ride a whole bunch, and it's completely brand new. He leaves that room and exits and enters another room. In this room we come to this scene right here, and this goes back to his origin story of what happened to his parents, and we see his parents are drowning right here on, like, you know, puppet strings and stuff like that. He instantly getting disgusted, and he runs out of the room, and or tries to run out of the room, and he is greeted by our three mascots, the Fun, Nick, and Devil D Danny, or Devil D Evil, or whatever it was. I'm sorry, but basically them not allowing him to, you know, leave the ride, and them forcing him on the ride, securing the actual safety bar that clamps him down, and they just usher him off into the ride, and you see that the door closes behind him, and that's basically it. The next scene that we get is actually in the Dark Tower, ha ha ha, and it's shown here, or the Dark Castle or whatever, but it is a ride that's in the park. We do find out that is where the father is. He is currently, but I want to believe he lives there because they make it look like it. But Sam Semhain goes up to where Arthur lives, and he basically, we do find out he's alive, and we find out that, you know, the reason the sister showed up is because he wants them to work together to try and save the park, but, you know, basically it's not really working, and it's never really worked. Sam Hamm instantly has that whole boyish, like, I tried it, you know, but then eventually, like, kind of calms down and has a real conversation with his dad, like, look, you know, I mean, she's the Hollywood side, I'm the parks, but look, I'm failing, I can't, you know, he was like, I'm so stressed out on everything, I can't think of anything to new, or, you know, any way to bring money in the park, we're failing. And he was like, and then he explains that he had to fire his best friend, or you know, a long-time friend, you know, and basically just to save money, he saved like 30 other people's jobs by firing that one guy, even though he made it look like he just fired the guy because the guy came up with some stupid decision. No, it was really, you know, because they needed the money. But Arthur, his dad, basically saying, you know, don't fear, son. And he was like, I just had an inspiration. And the inspiration being a new ride, and then we see what happens to Owen. The ride is basically like eating and tearing him apart. And they show like the picture that the dad drew, that it's basically the same scene right here. And that is the end of this issue. There is a message from Joshua Williamson about why he came up with the story, how he came up with it, and blah blah blah. There is a very cool detailed map that shows everything in this park. You can even find out where Owen died in the Devil's Due Ride, which is over here, the Dark Tower, and you can see the entrance. But it actually details all this stuff and gives you little side notes on stuff. It's so far, I mean, going so detailed as showing you information kiosks and stuff like that. But that's basically it. They give like a small little tidbit on like what's to come in the next issue, and you know, that's it. All I can say is I was pretty surprised. I thought Owen was going to be one of our main characters. He's kind of featured on the cover. So I was really surprised that he had died right off the bat, especially after like that thing started calling his name. I really thought we were kind of going to get the same thing, you know, same deal that Arthur got. But it didn't go out that way for Owen, right? It looks like Arthur got a new deal, or a new ride at least. So who knows what the next issue is going to be, what it's going to be about. But it does say in the, you know, that the whole book is going to be set in the theme park, so I have to imagine it's just going to be about random employees or something like that. I will like to add there is a sneak peek of a book that I'm very excited about that's coming from Image. It is called Chroma. I have not read the sneak preview. I kind of like glanced at it or whatever, just to check out the art, but I love this cover. Hey, but that's all I got for you. This was actually one of my long reviews. Please let me know what you thought about this book. You know, please, I would like to hear everybody's thoughts, especially where they think this book is going. I would really like to hear everybody's thoughts. But hey, that's what I got for you. Please, 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 please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bah!